Shall I begin, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 20, Verse 18. Canto 3, Chapter 20, Verse 18. Sahasarja Shayaya Vidyam Panchapavanam Agrata Tamishram Andha Tamishram Tamo Moho Mahatama Sahasarja Chichayaya Vidyam Panchaparvanam Agrata Tamishram Andha Tamishram Tamo Moho Mahatama. Word by word. Sahasarja, created. Chayaya, with his shadow. Avidyam, avidyam, ignorance. Panchaparvanam, five varieties. Agrata, first of all. Tamishram, tamishra. Andha tamishram, andha tamishra. Tama, tamas. Moha, moha. Mahatama, mahatamas. Or mahamoha. Translation. First of all, Brahma created from his shadow the coverings of ignorance of the conditioned souls. They are five in number and are called Tamishra, Andha Tamishra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha. One more time, the translation. First of all, Brahma created from his shadow the coverings of ignorance of the conditioned souls. They are five in number and are called Tamishra, Andha Tamishra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The conditioned souls or living entities who came to the material world to enjoy sense gratification are covered in the beginning by five different conditions. The first condition is a covering of tamishra, or anger. Constitutionally, each and every living entity has minute independence. It is misuse of that minute independence for the conditioned soul to think that he can also enjoy like the Supreme Lord, or to think, why shall I not be free, enjoy like the Supreme Lord? This forgetfulness of his constitutional position is due to anger or envy. The living entity, being eternally a part and parcel servitor of the Supreme Lord, can never, by constitution, be an equal enjoyer with the Lord. When he forgets this, however, and tries to be one with him, his condition is called Tamishra. Even in the field of spiritual realization, this Tamishra mentality of the living entity is hard to overcome. In trying to get out of entanglement of material life, there are many who want to be one with the Supreme. Even in their transcendental living activities, this lower grade mentality of Tamishra continues. Andha Tamishra involves considering death to be the ultimate end. The atheists generally think that the body is the self and that everything is therefore ended with the body, with the end of the body. Thus, they want to enjoy material life as far as possible during the existence of the body. Their theory is, as long as you live, you should live prosperously. Never mind whether you commit to all kinds of so-called sins. You must eat sumptuously, beg, borrow, and steal. And if you think that by stealing and borrowing, you're being entangled in sinful activities for which you will have to pay for, then just forget that misconception, because after death, everything is finished. No one is responsible for anything he does during his life. This atheistic conception of life is killing human civilization, for it is without knowledge of the continuation of eternal life. This Andha Tamishra, ignorance, is due to tamas. The condition of not knowing anything about the spirit soul is called tamas. This material world is also generally called tamas because 99% of its living entities are ignorant of their identity as soul. Almost everyone is thinking that he is this body. He has no information of the spirit soul. Guided by this misconception, one always thinks, this is my body, and anything in relationship with this body is mine. Actually, the conditioned souls in ignorance in this material world are simply guided by sex life. And as soon as they get the opportunity for sex life, they become attached to so-called home, motherland, children, wealth, and opulence. As these attachments increase, moha, or the illusion of bodily concept of life, also increases. Thus, the idea that I am this body and everything belonging to this body is mine also increases. And as the whole world is put into moha, sectarian societies, families, and nationalities are created, and they fight with one another. Mahamoha means to be mad after material enjoyment. Especially in this age of Kali, everyone is overwhelmed by the madness to accumulate paraphernalia for material enjoyment. These definitions are very nicely given in Vishnu Puran, where it is said, Tamo viveko mohasyad antakarna vibhrama mahamohastu vigneyo gramya bhoga sukhaishana marnam hi anda tamishram krodha uchyate avidya pancha parvaisa pradurbhuta mahatmana. Okay. So again, this is Canto 3, Chapter 20, verse 18. The name of this chapter, or rather, this canto is called The Status Quo, and the name of this um this chapter is the conversation between Maitreya Muni and Vidura. That's the the chapter name. So just to set up some context here, Shaunaka Rishi is asking Suta Goswami. So Suta Goswami's, they're all at Naimisharanya. And so Shaunaka Rishi is asking Suta Goswami, what did Vidura ask Maitreya Muni? Vidura was asked to associate with Maitreya Muni, and so Shaunaka Rishi is asking, uh what did Vidura ask Maitreya Muni? And so one of the questions that Vidura asked is what did Brahma do to create living beings after evolving the Prajapatis? So Brahma first created these Prajapatis, but then how did creation manifest after that? How did the Prajapatis execute on the instruction of Brahma? So in this, part of this chapter now, Brahma is describing, so Brahma is now describing that full process of creation. Um, well, yeah, and specifically Shaunaka Rishi's telling Sutta Goswami, this is what Lord Brahma, you know, did to create to begin creation. So right off the bat, if you read the translation of this verse, it says Brahma created from a shadow the coverings of ignorance of the conditioned souls. So one might ask, um, so like why is that even being created? Why is Brahma creating um these coverings of ignorance for the conditioned souls? That seems strange, unordinary. Um, and then even that, Brahma is creating 5 different types of ignorance for the living entity. Um, and each of these purposes behind of these coverings of ignorance has a purpose. So it's like very thought through, as to why ignorance exists in this world. Um, in fact, one might say that for us to be happy, uh, we want ignorance, right? We've all heard the phrase "ignorance is bliss." And so, when we're looking for happiness, it's the ignorance that makes us be falsely happy. For example, if you have earned a lot of money or if you have achieved something, uh, you there's this you falsely think that you yourself was the reason that, contributed to that achievement. And so you kind of falsely identify with that happiness. And so in one sense, it's described that this ignorance is kind of there for us to be happy because we have these false conceptions. And so Brahma created these preliminary conditions of ignorance for us to quote unquote enjoy the material world. Like that was a part of creation. And so often when we talk about creation from Lord Brahma, we hear that he created the demigods and he created, this and this aspect, but this part that these five coverings of ignorance is only mentioned twice in all of Bhagavatam. I think it's mentioned once here and another part in Bhagavatam, like the fact that Brahma created these five like coverings of ignorance. It says Pancha Parvanam, five varieties of misery. Agrata, this is the first creation and the first part of creation. He creates these. And these layers of ignorance that are described influence every thought, every action, every word we speak. Like we're kind of prisoners of these conditions. Every living entity sort of has this hope that they will enjoy this material life. This hope of like I can, find a way to be happy in the way this is constructed. I will prove my best. I will deliver the best at work, or I'll, be the best in whatever I'm doing. This hope is what sort of tends to like or drive us in some ways in this material world. So, after this, Srila Prabhupada starts to describe like the five different kinds of covering. So he begins with Dhamishra, which is anger. And he begins with saying, with Dhamishra, with anger, each and every living entity has some minute independence. We are given some minute independence. And it's the misuse of that, that where the conditioned soul thinks that he can be like the Supreme Lord. That's when the soul thinks, oh, I can also enjoy like the way Krishna enjoys. Why should I not be a free enjoyer? So this forgetfulness of this position is due to anger, tamishra. It's like this forgetfulness comes from anger, like this rebellion, where let me also enjoy this supreme world. And so, Prabhupada says even in the field of spiritual realization, it's hard to overcome this mentality of tamishra. I mean, we hear examples of Lord Indra, for example, challenging Lord Krishna, or Lord Brahma challenging Lord Krishna. Even in this spiritual realm, uh, they forget this position at times. So it's coming from this rebellion or Dhamishra quality, which is the first layer of ignorance. Um, then he and in some ways this Dhamishra, this anger where like, I can enjoy mentality, it's hard like to overcome. I mean, if you just think about a day of life, our life is centered around how do I make it work in this current setup of life? How do I make sure my kids are fed? How do I make sure there's enough money coming in? You know, everyone's active, everyone's happy. We're trying to within the construct of what exists, we're trying to figure out how to make it work. So it's almost, and then we get so involved in that you forget the bigger picture of that being successful at XYZ is not the only goal. It's important, but it's not the only goal, basically. The second, covering is Andhata Mishra, which is Andha means blind. And so this covering is, is the idea that you're considering death to be the ultimate end. So, at death, um, that's the final stop. And again, none of us have remember what it is like after death. We don't remember that feeling. Okay, so after death, what was it like? And so naturally, all of us living entities think that's the ending period, death. And so, we think we can do everything, achieve everything in this between birth and death time frame. So the second covering of ignorance on the Dhammasra is about that. Atheists, in fact, the atheists think, Prabhupada is saying that the body's the self and everything is therefore ending with the end of body. So the idea then they propose is enjoy material life as much as possible during the existence of the body. In fact, we hear the phrase "life is short," so don't hold grudges. Don't be happy. In some way we say that, right? Um, so the mentality becomes as long as you live prosperously. You know, don't commit to sins. Eat nicely, elaborately, beg, borrow, steal. You know, um, and then just forget after death. Everything will go away. So that's the second mentality under the Mishra. And again, it's easy for us to fall in this trap, um, just because we don't remember what it was like after death. The third covering, sorry, is tamas, which is um, Prabhupada says this on the Tamishra, the idea that everything ends after death is because of tamas. Um, and so the material world generally is called tamas because Prabhupada says 99% of living entities are ignorant of their identity of the soul. Again, they identify with the body. So this covering of tamas um, is talking about this identification. So I'm not the soul, I'm the body. That's what tamas is describing. And Prabhupada makes it a point to call out that sex life is the background or the guiding force of the tamas. Um, and 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 that takes that's sort of the guiding force for tamas is sort of what he says. Fourth covering is moha, um, which is the illusion of bodily concept of life. Prabhupada says that increases as these from these three coverings. So as these attachments increase, this idea increases that I am the body, everything belonging to the body is mine. And as the whole world is put into this moha, um, these attachments increase. And then Prabhupada talks about these other illusions that come up where, this is, I identify with this clan, this family, or this nationality, and this specific sect of, group. And therefore then it creates fights like, Democrats versus Republicans or, whatever part, group that you're choosing to go with. And this fifth covering is really interesting, which is Mahamoha, um, which is to the point where you become mad after enjoyment. And so that's when this rat race begins of accumulating paraphernalia for material enjoyment. Um, like, let me do whatever I can to achieve that material enjoyment, whether it's earning as much money as possible or if it's, um, you know, enjoying something else at any cost. But this is called Mahamo. So Mahamoha, which is I will do anything at any cost to be extremely happy, basically. So these are the five coverings that Lord Brahma has created for living entity. These five coverings are also compared to the five kleshas or the five miseries. And the reason being is, like this Prabhupada says the breeding ground for all this is tamas or avidya. Um, you know, just not knowing or forgetting that we are the soul, not the body, and thinking that we can enjoy and we can figure it out. And that's the breeding ground for our karma. Then we take actions based off of that, and then karma kicks into action after that. Um, one another way, ignorance is described is when we think something that's not eternal to be eternal. So something that's temporary, we think that is the permanent. That's another way of describing ignorance. Somehow we think the situation will become stable. Um, when we wish Happy New Year at the beginning of the year, right? The hope is this year we will overcome all sufferings and be completely stable. And so that Srila Prabhupada and is sort of explaining with these five coverings that that's not the case. Now, for me, as I was reading these five coverings, sort of few questions, popped up in my head. One was, Brahma's created these five coverings, so how are we supposed to like come out of these five coverings and go above and beyond that? And another question that, comes up is like, we're not, this might indicate that we should be living our life in a cynical manner. Like every time we do anything, we should just say, "Oh, this is temporary. Why should I do this?" So this at work, I shouldn't try to be successful because this is temporary, or I shouldn't put anything into life because this is all temporary. So that one can take that attitude as well when you read this, but that's not what is being proposed. It's being aware of the fact that this is temporary and knowing that you shouldn't depend on this being everything, right? So I just wanted to make that point that the the, the idea of this isn't to give up and become numb and sort of um, pause on everything, but rather to be aware of the reality, what's out there, how creation was created, how Brahma put these things in place, how there is a bigger purpose, and then to practice and live your life knowing that. Because I think one of the things that Prabhupada is calling out is as even as even devotees we forget that there's a bigger picture, and that's the main point I wanted to sort of drive home. Those are the main points I wanted to cover. I'm thank you all, but I wanted to hear from devotees if there were any comments or anything you all wanted to add here.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I joined a little late. When I joined, you were talking about the five coverings. Can you please, list out those? Sorry for asking you to repeat it.
Yeah, sure, Prabhu. Yeah. So the five coverings are Tamishra, which is anger. The second one is Andhatamishra, which is considering death to be the ultimate end. The third one is Tamas, ignorance. Fourth is Moha, which is illusion of the bodily concept of life. And the fifth one is Mahamoha, which is to be mad after material enjoyment.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. So I always think when we read this section and why did Brahma, I mean, of course, the beginning of the creation, the way Brahma does it, right? Everything is failing and everything is negative kind of thing, right? So it's always challenging to understand why somebody is doing a great task and is doing these kind of things.
Yeah, yeah,
Of course,
yeah,
it is very, I mean, that is necessary, right, for the living entity to feel that the enjoying, right? So otherwise,
yeah,
it's not going to be possible. So, yeah, you said ignorance is bliss.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, without knowing that, I mean, one will not be able to know that, I mean, feel that, okay, one is enjoying,
yeah,
right? That is the purpose that the living entity came to this material world. So that
yeah,
is the purpose the Brahma is creating these various kinds of ignorance.
yeah, yeah. And I what I liked was that it's honestly put in the scripture. It's not this fact isn't being hidden that Brahma was the one that created these five coverings of ignorance. It's out there for people to know.
Mm. So all of them are I mean, interlinked as well, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're not mutually exclusive. They're also built in a way where they're working together.
yeah, in Sanskrit, I mean, of course, you gave the meaning of each of them, but generally when we say ignorance, ignorance, right? It's not like different words for these kind of things.
Yeah,
In Sanskrit, there are 5 different words.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Thank you, Prabhu.
yeah. I'm curious I'm curious to hear from devotees like uh how do you all remind yourself like I'm not the body, I'm the soul. You know, not during sadhana time, but after sadhana time. Like I'm curious if devotees, if like if there's any practical tips of when a situation happens, how do you step back and remember that there's a bigger picture and bigger purpose? If there's an example you all can share, or if there's a practical thing you can share, that would be nice.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, wonderful question. Uh, it didn't even occur to me until you asked the question. So what I realize is the moment we switch on the devotee button, the circuit closes and it starts flowing in. But stepping out of that mode, getting into the real world, at least I have not really or honestly attempted to separate the body and the soul. You know, now consciously or subconsciously. So I can't justify, but I also think sometimes, particularly in the workplace and other areas, uh, separating them doesn't really work. It'll let people be more confused, and so don't know, Prabhuji. That's where it is. I'm just giving you a honest answer. Wonderful question, though.
Thank you for sharing, Prabhu. Thank you. Think if no other thoughts. Oh, go ahead, Prabhu. Lakshmi Prabhu.
No,
Yeah.
no, Anand Priya Mataji thought she has some, she will have good thing to share on this, I'm guessing. So I don't know if she's in a position to speak.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, did you say something?
No, no. Would you be able to share? I mean, are you in a position to share what Prabhu is asking the question, Mataji? Or you cannot?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about it. And what I would say is it's hard uh, because I'm not in the soul platform at all at any time. So what I do basically is when the difficult situation comes, then I just take the some practical steps at that time. Like I know what works for me to bring to cool me down, and then pray, and then talk to someone who can give me good advice and see how to act. That is how I do. But separating soul from body, it's like not there yet at all. And I don't think so. Even for a moment, I think I'm a soul, not the body. That is where I am.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking, Prabhu, generally, I mean, I know it's not going to be easy. I mean, many times, but once in a while, when one goes through a difficult situation, or I go through a difficult situation, I mean, at the moment it may be difficult, but after the moment it happens, I mean, go and pray to the Lord. I mean, of course, that is when at least we know, okay, yeah, it is not me. So it's body. So I mean, it's very. I mean, of course, just to theoretically or convince ourselves, or at least pray in that mood, right? So to the Lordships, I think at least, I mean, those are the some moments, not all the time, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I was thinking of not even just the body and the soul part, but even like if there's a such, if there's something in life that you're not happy with in general, like let's say you're not, I don't know, succeeding at work that the way you want to, or there's some issue at the temple at some service, yeah, like how does one process that? Do you spend 100 more times of energy to come over that, or do you look at the big picture and say, I can try as much as I can, but there's only so much I can do. After that, it's Krishna's input. Yeah.
I would like to add on that, Akhanda, and uh, what I was thinking on that is, it is not only handling the situation, it is the emotions and feelings that person goes through, right? So if we go on the little higher level, when consciousness goes, when we chant, when we hear, then consciousness, it just raises above, the current circumstances, what you're saying. That definitely happens, when we chant and when we hear, the consciousness go higher. But at the same time, um, I would say my I rather than he. I cannot really negate my feelings and emotions. I can see, okay, that's how the situation is, right? How I need to handle that. That I can get. But that comes along with how I'm feeling. Am I hurt? Am I, those emotions and feelings also need to be addressed, rather than, that's how I feel, rather than trying to be thinking myself to be on the higher platform.
Yeah. Yeah.
It means taking the practical steps, but at the same time, uh, at least I need to process my feelings, my emotions.
Yeah.
Where am I? And then I can move forward from that situation. If I don't take care of that part, then I remain stuck in my past.
Yeah. Actually, when you were saying that, Mataji, it reminded me of the whole Dhruva Maharaj pastime when, Dhruva Maharaj's father did not let him sit on the lap, and Dhruva Maharaj went running to his mother, crying, telling his mother, "Hey, father didn't let me sit in his lap, and only let my stepbrother sit in his lap." Dhruva Maharaj's mother's response wasn't, "Oh, just go pray to," she didn't say go pray to Krishna right away. Actually, she was very sad. Like she had emotions of sadness. She was crying when she heard this, and so I remember, I've heard this in class multiple times. Her reaction wasn't a numb reaction. Oh, this is just the middle part of life. It's okay. It was rather, empathizing with Dhruv Maharaj, understanding where he's coming from, her feeling sadness, her getting clarity, and then she tells Dhruv Maharaj, listen, if you really want to overcome this, you have to, go to the forest and pray and so on and so forth. So yeah, I resonate, Mataji, with what you're saying. You can't be numb to it. You have to sort of process what is what you're going through. Yeah. But then I guess at some point being able to pivot and understand the larger picture.
Right. That's a very nice example you gave. So, yeah. How do you deal with it?
Well, for me, Mataji, the one that I've been dealing with is work. Like, for me, it's very easy for me to get sucked into my work, um, and that can easily become the main thing for me at times. And so, um, just always at the end of the day, I try to remind myself that don't let work define your self-worth. Like, don't let work define your identity, because I've let that happen in the past to a point where I've let work define my self-worth and self-identity and things like that. So I just remind myself that but I don't really act on it per se. So like if I were to pick my demon or my attachment, it's it's being able to get so intertwined into work. Yeah.
So it's like you're saying like how sometimes you identify yourself by work, and how your self-worth also based on that.
Yeah, like depending on the performance I get at work, let's say I did really good, I end up defining my entire being on that. Like, oh, Akhanda Nama, you did so good at work, you're good. If you did bad at work, then you're not a good person. Which is like I put everything on that performance review, if that makes sense.
It's a natural. So
Yeah.
at times, yeah. But it becomes it's natural to feel that way, but I think it can drag us down also.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
because the self-worth means it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But self-worth, it should be based on how I perceive myself,
Yeah.
not how others perceive me.
Yeah.
But it is hard to do. But I was talking to my counselor recently, and something it was some different thing we were discussing on.
Yeah.
But I really liked what she said. And rather later on, I was reading Mahatma Prabhu's quote also. It was similar. So, if we do something good, rather than waiting for others to say you did good, it's good to give credit to ourselves.
Yeah.
And if someone else says good, that okay, you did good, then yeah, it can be cherry on the top, but it's not
the main defining thing. Yeah.
Main defining thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a small thing, but after that, when I started applying, it really helped, actually.
Yeah. And that requires self-honesty then. That requires you to be like self-honest. Yeah. Thank you. No other thoughts, we'll end here, and I hope everyone has a great Saturday.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.